Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos al Congreso de Venus. Hoy tenemos una súper invitada, una astróloga norteamericana, ARIELLE GUTTMAN, que es la pionera en el tema de Venus Start Point. Ella estudió muchísimos años los movimientos y los ciclos sinódicos de Venus en relación a la Tierra y al Sol, y hoy ha accedido a estar presente en este Congreso de Venus para celebrar la vida, la belleza, los valores. Y como yo no hablo muy bien inglés, tengo una colega astróloga española, que es Mar Guerrero, que también nos va a ayudar con las traducciones, con las preguntas, para que esta ponencia sea enriquecedora para todos. Quiero saludar y darle la bienvenida a ARIELLE. ARIELLE, thank you for your participation in this Congress. We are very happy.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. This is the first time I've done a Spanish Congress.
ARIELLE, what can you tell us about this Venus star point in Capricorn?
Well, first of all, do you have an idea what the Venus star point is and how it works, how it moves around? You know, like this pattern behind me is 5 points of the star, and it's the Venus star orbits with Earth around the sun in an 8-year time period for 5 different points. What that means is in an 8-year period, Venus will go retrograde in 5 different signs, about 1.6 years apart from the last one to the next one. It takes about 8 years for this. And the amazing thing is that when it's done with that 8-year cycle, it repeats the same signs again in the next 8 years, and then it repeats it again in the next 8 years, moving only 1 degree, maybe 2 degrees backwards, clockwise through the zodiac. And so when I discovered this pattern of the Venus star, like a Venus flower, and where the retrogrades were happening, and I call them star points because they are points of the Venus star. I call this pattern that Venus makes the Venus star, and then each of the points or each of the retrogrades is a star point. But you could call it a petal of a flower. You could call it, it's similar to the unfolding of a rose or the opening of a rose, which Venus has been associated with. So when I put them on the zodiac, I was quite surprised to see where they fell for the current time period, and also where they fell in my own birth chart, the year I was born. And of course, I started, excuse me, testing this out with people. How does it work for them? What is their star point? We are now shifting from the Aries star point to the Capricorn star point as we're recording this. I think this will be broadcast on the very day that the Venus star comes into Capricorn. So we are shifting from the last star point of Aries to the next star point of Capricorn. And this happens about every 9.5 months, this change. It's a change of sign. It's a change of energy, like, is it fire? Is it earth? Is it cardinal? Is it mutable? Is it yin? Is it yang? Is it, it has a feeling to it. It has a vibration to it, sometimes subtle, because we have the noise of the other planets in the foreground. Everybody's paying attention to Pluto and Capricorn and Saturn and Chiron and everybody else, Uranus, but there's this beautiful musical, harmonic music of Venus playing in the background on this star point. So I like to use this 9.5 month period, which is interesting because it is the gestation cycle of the human embryo from conception to birth. And I have found in my research that the Venus vibration the harmonic of Venus also connects to this kind of thing, conception to birth. So we might be giving birth to anything, you know, it could be from one star point to the next. It could be, what are we giving birth to? But it goes along with the idea of Venus as the principle of, first of all, of attraction and magnetism, and then reaching one's arms out to embrace one another, and then to unite, and then to produce in biological form a new life. But this is how life goes on. This is how the chain of life goes on. It's through the cycle of this Venus star. So it's really a very important pattern. It's what connects us. And it's what a lot of people who come to astrology really are asking about. Without knowing it's Venus or the Venus star, the questions we all get as astrologers tend to be about love and about harmony and about how do I be more comfortable in my environment? What shall I invest in? You know, where can I increase my income by moving from this job to another? Can I find peace and so forth, and beauty? What are my creative skills? How do I connect, you know, in a community or with people? Or how do I sometimes handle relationships that are difficult, and how do I smooth them out? So everything, I think, well, not everything, but almost everything comes back to Venus. And I found that this star, this Venus star, is a beautiful way to plot the different energies of what's actually happening right now, and how we, you know, how we move through life, how we go from one phase to the next. And at certain times, these star points change signs. Typically, it's a very slow-moving star, and so it takes about 100 years through a sign. And it also, people should know that this Venus star, when we're talking about the Venus star or the Venus star point in your chart, it's different than your natal Venus. Don't think of it as your natal Venus. Not unless you were born really right on the cazimi or the conjunction of Sun and Venus, the star date. Otherwise, it'll be a completely, it most likely will be a completely different sign. And so you know, we have 12 signs of the zodiac, and there's only 5 star points at any given time. So not all 12 signs are represented. They can be, you know, not represented for 100 more years or 50 more years or 50 years past. So I think the 5 points of the star that are going through particular signs at the moment are very vibrant, very important. They're emphasized quite heavily. So, and I sometimes call them, these are the signs of our times.
I think this Venus star point is very strongly because she does a tree conjunction to Pluto.
Right, right.
And with Mercury, she does another conjunction, and with Mars.
Right.
So it's a final cycle of economic, social, and social values too, because in this sign, Capricorn, we had in 2020 2 conjunctions, Saturn and Pluto, and Jupiter and Pluto, in degrees similar with
Right.
this Venus conjunction. So it's a new cycle who begin for 2022 with eclipses in Tauro and Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
Are you agree with that?
Yeah, the the Capricorn especially has been emphasized over the last decade or more, especially with Pluto in Capricorn since 2008. And then in 2020, we had, you know, as you say, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, all in Capricorn, plus a lineup of inner planets and asteroids right on that conjunction. So that was another strong emphasis in Capricorn. The Venus star point entered the sign of Capricorn in 1986, and it runs for about 100 years. So Venus has been influencing Capricorn all this time. Now, when the Venus star point moves through a sign, it emphasizes, not only emphasizes the sign, but gives power to the sign, gives influence, gives the things that that sign governs or represents. It gives power, it gives wealth, it gives all the things that Venus will tend to bring, you know, to a sign. It gives a lot of magnetism and attraction. So Capricorn has been one of the 5 star points of our time since 1986. But I'd say since 2008, when Pluto entered Capricorn, we've had Pluto and the Venus star point traveling together at various times. Now, the Venus star point started from the end of the sign, 29, going backwards. Pluto started at 0, going forwards. It's only this last 4 years that they actually came together exactly. In 2018, 4 years ago, the Venus star point was at 18 Capricorn, as it is now. It's repeating the degree, but at that time, Pluto was exactly on the star point. And that was almost like a premonition. It was almost like a precursor for what 2020 was going to bring. Because in Capricorn, you could say that, you know, all 5 points of the star are pretty powerful and pretty potent when other planets are interacting with them, but especially with Capricorn, because it has to do so much with the politics and the society and the economy and laws and rules. And we see these laws being changed and challenged right now. We have all these new laws coming in and all these restrictions. Capricorn is a sign that's governed by Saturn. And, you know, if Venus is giving Capricorn what it wants, not maybe what we want, but what Capricorn wants, remember, Venus is giving to the sign. So it's giving to Capricorn what it wants, which is the idea that these lawmakers are, you know, have the ability to do almost whatever they want right now in terms of imposing new laws, new policies, new restrictions. You know, Saturn ruled Capricorn is sometimes about restriction. And we saw in 2020 how when they were all together in Capricorn, how everything just kind of closed down and became very tense. And we had a lot of economic challenges that year. We had just so much going on with that. Well, we're still in the aftermath of that. We haven't totally gotten out of that, but now, as you say, Capricorn is hosting Pluto and Venus together. 4 years ago, the star point was on Pluto. This time, it's not the star point on Pluto, but it's Venus in her retrograde cycle meeting Pluto 3 times. So that was an evening star 4 years ago. And when Venus is an evening star, she goes direct. She only passes, you know, forward through the sign, and then she goes to the next sign. Well, this time she's going retrograde, and out of that will come the morning star. And so when Venus goes retrograde, she's been in Capricorn since November. She will be in Capricorn until March. That's a long period for Venus to be in one sign. And so in that time, she goes retrograde for about 40 days. It's an average of 40 days. And I always think of Venus retrogrades as a stepping back, that 40-day period where we move back and we go within and we try to, you know, we think of it, we sometimes describe Venus retrograde as Venus going into the underworld because she's going behind the sun. We can't see her. So she's disappearing. So she's going into the underworld. But of course, Pluto is a planet that deals with the underworld. And so we have a double, even triple emphasis of that right now with the meeting of Pluto 3 times. So, you know, hold on, we're in for, you know, could be a turbulent ride.
And in that sense, with the conjunctions, like what will be the difference between the conjunction when Venus is retrograde and when it's direct? And also how, when a person is born with Venus retrograde, how that is reflected in that person's life.
Okay, the first question is, what's the difference between when it's direct and when it's retrograde? But when it's direct, it will only pass over another planet one time. It's just moving along, you know, Venus 1 degree a day approximately, and it just moves along its cycle, kind of the way the sun moves along 1 degree a day, so forth. So the impact is only felt for a day or two, a very short time. But when Venus is retrograde, and I always look at retrogrades this way, Mercury retrograde, especially Mercury retrograde, but Venus retrograde as well, because it's staying so long in one sign, but not the whole sign, only part of the sign, about half of the sign or a third of the sign. Okay, in that space, in that small space of the zodiac, who is it going to encounter in that retrograde cycle? You know, it might square Saturn 3 times, or it might opposite Chiron 3 times, but this time it's conjunct Pluto 3 times. So the signature of this Venus retrograde is the 3 kisses, if you will, with Venus and Pluto. Now, Venus deals with love, and it also deals with money. Pluto, as one of the co-rulers of Scorpio, also deals with joint finances, joint investments and finances, partners' money, we say, or inheritance, and also connection, love, intimacy, sexuality. The power issues around that might come up, like, you know, how are we sharing our resources? How are we, I think with
Hola, ¿me escuchan? Se congeló.
And so this could involve partnerships, it could involve investing with others, it could involve where is your money tied up right now, and is it tied up, and how are you able to access it, and are you able to get everything you want with it? There's been a lot of astrologers saying things like, with this Venus retrograde in Pluto, that the economic situation is going to be in some kind of free fall or turmoil during this Venus retrograde with Pluto in Capricorn. We'll see if that happens. I do know that as we're shifting out of the Venus star point, the major Venus star point in later this year, in October, out into Libra from Scorpio, the whole decade of the 2020s involves almost a whole new way of dealing with currency and exchange. And part of that could be the cryptocurrency that's so big right now, but there may be other ways too. you know, I would say let's leave the possibility open for other kinds of exchanges to take place where, and the reason I say that is because Scorpio, when Scorpio began, Taurus was ending, and the Taurus, the last Taurus star point was in the 1920s, 1930s, right around 1929, when we had a giant stock market crash that affected the whole world as far as, you know, the whole economic devastation that was happening then. And then the star point went in from Taurus into Aries. Well, now we have the other sign that deals with money and finances, which is Scorpio. And, you know, it came in around that time, but now it's coming to an end and flipping into Libra. So it's been not just a change in currency, but a change with Venus in the historical cycles of Venus. It's what's of value. What are we investing in? The last 100 years have been an oil-based economy, and many people have gotten very wealthy investing in petroleum and petroleum-based products, because the Scorpio star point, and Scorpio and Pluto deal with things like oil, petroleum, things that you mine, you know, underground and come from under the water, under the sea, and underground. But that came in, the automobile and the need for petroleum and petroleum-based industries came in the 1920s. And here we are ending that Scorpio 100-year period in the 2020s, going into an air sign. And Libra is going to call for not just, if there will be 2 air signs on the Venus star at that point, Gemini and Libra, and Libra is going to call for clean air and clean air industries and environmental protection more than it's been happening with Scorpio. We've been trying to clean things up, but it's almost been going against the flow of what's been happening. So I think when we go into the new air cycle in the 2020s, we'll probably see a much greater call for and, well, demand for, and the possibilities of vehicles that are fueled by electric power and energy that's fueled by wind and the sun and things like that.
With the Venus star point in Libra, we don't have any more element water in the 5 points of Venus star.
With Libra, we have
no more water, like the 5 star points are not in any sign that is a water sign, right? With this change.
Yes, and that's unusual. You know, and that will only be,
because
that will only be for a little while. For about 2 decades, we will be without water. I don't know if that's going to create some kind of crisis with water as well, but we won't get into the Pisces star until the early 2040s. But you're right, we have 2 fire and 2 air signs coming into the star, which is really unusual. There's 5 points of the star. Typically, there's 2 of the same element on the star. You know, like all 4 elements will be there, but then the 5th point will be an extra element. And I've looked at those historically too. Like from 1950, in the 1950 era, it was double water. In the 1900 era, it was double earth. In the 2000 era, it was double fire. And now, as we're going into, you know, the 2020s and Libra comes in, we still have double fire on the star Aries and Leo, and then we will also have Gemini and Libra. So yeah, we'll have only 3 elements on a 5-pointed star, which is kind of unusual.
And it's changed the relationships? if we don't
So-
have water, that's changed relationships
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah. And what it came to me with this, it was the change also of the great conjunction, like Saturn and Jupiter, changing into air as well. So it's like an extra layer of air in general in the economy and in everything. Very interesting.
absolutely. Yes, it was. And we're having more air as we go on into the 2020s. We had, of course, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, as you said, was 0 Aquarius at the end of 2020. And that influence lasts for 20 years. But it's really a 200-year air cycle. The Aquarius part lasts for 20 years, but the whole air idea is 200 years. So it's a very long cycle. But then besides that, then Pluto goes into Aquarius in a couple of years. And then Uranus goes into Gemini in a couple of years. And the Venus star point has the 2 air signs on for about another 40 years or so, 50 years. So we are really going into up in the air. we are going into the air.
And this Venus star point, Ariel, who is retrograde in 19 December, it's mean our relationships begin more heartily, realist, pragmatical, compromise. What is the difference between another Venus star point, this Venus star point in here, element Earth?
The difference between the air element and
The Earth. In this case, it was the Earth. Yes. Like
the one,
Capricorn, yes, the retrograde.
Capricorn going into
yes.
Libra. You mean Capricorn going into Libra? Yeah, we'll be going from Earth to air. Luckily, we still have an Earth sign on the star for a while, because with all that air, we'd be floating away. But you can see, in the last decade or so, you can see the how this is already going. We've seen images of people going into space, and like all these billionaires going into space and opening space stations and opening for real exploration into space, not just organizations like NASA doing scientific studies of the other planets and things, but now for real, people actually taking rides into space and with hopes of landing and colonizing other planets. So we are talking about air. One thing that happened in the early, when was it? I'm trying to think. Well, the early days of the 20th century was we had air flight. We had us lifting off the ground and going into flight, air travel. But air travel itself has been really restricted now since 2020, when Saturn's been in Aquarius. Saturn's either been with Jupiter, which it was all through 2020, and Jupiter was in Saturn's sign in 2020, Capricorn. So we had all the flights being restricted and grounded, and a lot of people not being able to fly from place to place. Then Jupiter went into Aquarius and things started to open up for flight again in the early 2021, which felt really good. But Saturn's going to be in Aquarius still for another 2 years. So we're still having restrictions with air travel and traveling to places and going where we really want to go. And I think the more important theme, though, of Saturn in Aquarius, followed rapidly by Pluto in Aquarius. Once Saturn leaves Aquarius, Pluto will come into Aquarius, is the idea that Aquarius is a sign that rules humanity. And we are dealing with some very strong issues about human rights at this point. Again, legislation of certain mandates. I'm not saying whether they're good laws or not good laws. That's for people to evaluate for themselves. So there's no, I'm not saying it's one way or another. I'm just saying we are going to be faced with a lot of new laws that are going to affect human rights. And we are going to see people really coming into a very fighting for their rights as human beings, to choose, to make their own choices about things.
Mar, ¿le puedes preguntar cómo va a influir estos 9 meses de este ciclo de Venus Star Point en Capricornio? Porque el regente de esta Venus, que es Saturno, está en Acuario haciendo una cuadratura a Urano. Y eso quizás se refleje en las relaciones sociales o las restricciones.
So how do you see that this cycle, the whole cycle, like with this energy of Capricorn and the ruler of Capricorn being Saturn, and Saturn is still squaring Uranus because it's like it's going on in 2022 as well. So how do you see these weaves together?
Well, that's the beginning of what I was just talking about. I think I was looking back at the Aries star point that we just came out of it happened in March of 2021. And that was Aries, and Aries is governed by Mars. You always want to look at the Venus star point sign, and then you look at the planet that is governing that sign to see what is that planet doing as well. And when I looked at what was Mars doing for the 2021 9-month period of the Venus star in Aries, I saw that it was not ever retrograde. It went through 6 whole signs. It was unimpeded. It was moving along. It was challenging the Uranus-Saturn square a few times when it was in the fixed signs, but still it was moving along and moving along. And now we're going into the Capricorn star governed by Saturn in Aquarius. It's only going to be moving a very small part of Aquarius, you know, just a part of the sign. It will be retrograde for 5 months. And it's not making a lot of progress. So it led me to believe that, or conclude that maybe 2022, we will not be making as much progress moving forward as we have in 2021, because, you know, Aries is a let's do it, let's go kind of sign. Capricorn's a little bit more, well, let's go, but you can't until you do this. You can't until you finish that, you know, like mom saying, you can't go out until you finish your homework, or you can't go out until you clean your room, or, you know, it's that kind of parental restriction or authority or whatever. It's like, I have work to do. I can't get there until I finish this. So I think there will be a struggle between trying to get where we want to go and realizing that, you know, we might have to put it on hold. Eventually it will happen, but maybe not at this moment.
Yeah, and especially with the North Node in Taurus as well, right? That is not the fastest sign at all. So it also calls to slow down and just take the time to do things that are of value for the generations in the future as well, right? Like not just something quick and fixing something quickly, right? Like there is this long-term vision. And how do you think all of this affects in our personal relationships? Because Venus is also the planet of relationships and our love. So how do you think this Capricorn cycle and the nodal axis in Taurus as well will affect to our personal relationships?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think with Capricorn, well, at least through this retrograde process and the encounter with Pluto 3 times, we're going to be looking at our relationships pretty carefully, how we are together. Are we on the same values? Are we in, are we going in the same direction? Are we putting as much into it as the other person? And it could be financially, but it also could be energetically. It could be, I do more than than my partner does, or whatever. And so how is the balance of power being handled there? So yeah, I think personal relationships will, at least during this retrograde period of Venus, I think they will be very much, it will be very much a question, something that a goal that we want to, that we kind of want to get handled. We want to have conversations about them. Saturn in Aquarius, we have the nodes and also the eclipses. When the nodes are in Taurus and Scorpio, the eclipses are in Taurus and Scorpio. And so the eclipses are also going to be coming up to square both Uranus and Saturn during the year. So yeah, I think there's going to be some, again, what was fixed. These are fixed signs, but it's Uranus in a fixed sign. So how fixed is it? I think a lot of times, and I was saying this during 2020, that beginning of 2020 even, that we think we have security. We think we have security with Taurus, and we think everything is just the way it is. We've invested in something long-term, and that's the way it's going to be. And but Uranus is there, so we can't always count on things to stay exactly the way they're going to be. So.
Pregúntale, Marte va a hacer la conjunción con Venus en febrero, el 16, y luego va a estar haciendo la conjunción con Plutón. Eso es muy significativo, porque hace 2 años Marte fue que pasó por Capricornio y activó la triple conjunción Saturno, Júpiter y Plutón, y iniciamos toda esta nueva realidad que tiene que ver con la pandemia. ¿Qué podría iniciar este Marte 2 años después? Que toca a Venus y a Plutón en signos muy similares donde ocurrió las 3 conjunciones, digamos.
And how do you see here coming into the picture Mars when it comes with Venus and then Pluto as well? And this activates the whole 2 years ago, like the pandemia with the triple conjunction, and then also when Mars moved into the triple conjunction, it was when many things really like exploded in a way. So how do you see this 2 years later when Mars comes to the same place? What do you think that can activate, and yeah, like how do you see it happen?
Right. Mars is, do you have the, I don't have the exact date when Mars
February 16, right? You said, Ursula?
Febrero 16, con Venus, pero con Plutón.
¿Con Plutón?
Ahí voy a buscar. Pero
con Plutón será antes, ¿no? Porque 16 es en Acuario, creo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Venus
will still be in Capricorn then, and so you're saying, yeah, it's true. Mars at the end of the Venus because the last Venus conjunction with Pluto is
the 29th of January, something like that. Yeah.
Right. And I had these dates written down here. But yeah, Mars is going to activate it too. I wondered if you wanted me to share some visual images of this. So why don't I do that? You have to allow me to share my screen.
Darle el host, no?
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So we share, and we're going to go into, so this is the period of our Capricorn star point, January through October of 2022. This is what I was talking about before, the beautiful pattern of Venus as it makes its, this is 8 orbits of Earth and Venus around the sun, and computer generated graphic of how it makes this beautiful flower. Here's a morning glory with the beautiful Venus star right in it. And it's a nice flower to be reminding of ourselves of Venus. These are the 5 passes of Venus in the 8-year cycle that I was talking about, how we have a retrograde. For instance, in 2020, it was in Gemini. And then Venus continues to go all the way around the wheel once, and then another 0.6 around the wheel to number 2, where it's going to be retrograde in Capricorn now, right? And then when this retrograde is done, Venus will keep traveling along, and it will finish. It will go 1 whole year, and then it will go 0.6 of the years away around, and then the next star point will be over here in Leo. The retrograde will be in Leo in 2023. And it keeps doing this, you know, it'll take 1 year to come back to Leo, and then 0.6, it will be retrograde in Aries. And then finally, we'll come into 1 year, and then the final one will be actually not Scorpio, but Libra. So this is how the 5 points of the star work. This was going to show you. And this is the long-term cycle of the Venus star. This is the 40-year pattern, and this is the 100-year pattern. These are all slides that mostly come from my book, Venus Star Rising. So anybody that has the book might, I don't know how many, it's not been translated into Spanish yet. I hope that the Venus Star Point, the abridged version, will be someday translated into Spanish, so you can, your readers can see, your listeners can see this. But I also wanted to show this Venus star to the 5 points of the star that, you know, we're looking at now, which is really the signs that are in effect right now, as I was saying. And this is the period we're in right now. The Libra is starting in 2022, goes all the way to 2031. And the Scorpio star is ending. So Scorpio's ending its 100-year cycle, and then Libra will begin its 100-year cycle. And here we are in Capricorn right now, 1986 to 2078. So that's a long period still to go. We still have, we're only about halfway through it. We're in, you know, 50 more years, 55 years to go still. This is another image I made for the Venus star clock to show the actual degrees that you're, you know, that the Venus star is going through right now. So this is another, these are the 5 really hot degrees of, you know, the zodiac right now: 29 Libra, 18 Capricorn, 6 Aries, 13 Gemini, 21 Leo. Anything on or around those degrees in a person's chart are going to be quite sensitive. And it usually for a whole 8 years. Sometimes it can last more. Sometimes it can go for 12 years, sometimes beyond that. For instance, it was a 13-degree Gemini star point in 2020, but in 2016, it was like a 15-degree Gemini star point. And in 2024, it will be a 14-degree Gemini star point. So, and in 2012, it was about 16 or 15 degrees Gemini. So really from 2012 all the way to 2024, that Gemini star point is only traveling from like here, 13 to 16 degrees of the sign. So you have anything within that sign, anything within 13 to 16 degrees mutable signs, anything within 13 to 16 degrees of any sign, that Gemini star point has been activating it ever since, you know, really ever since 2012. This is a table you can find at my website. It's called Find Your Venus Star Point PDF at sophiavenus.com. It's a whole listing of dates from like 1870 all the way up to 2050 or so that is really activating, showing you where the star points are. So you can look that up if anybody wants to look up their star points. Okay, we've already talked about this. Here's the chart. You were actually talking about this, right? The chart for the Capricorn star point. You were asking me about this.
Yes, and also when Mars comes into the picture, right? Like this is before, yes, the star point, and then Mars also activates later with Pluto, but in a later degree.
Right.
Mars.
Yes, but also take note of the fact that Mars is at 18.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
For the star point beginning. I like to do the chart for the actual beginning of the star point because that gives us a kind of sets the tone for the whole 9 months. So we actually, even though we have Earth here, we still have quite a bit of fire. We have Mars in Sagittarius and we have the moon in Aries. And we still, of course, Chiron in Aries. And so there is some fire here going into it. And some Earth, Uranus and Taurus. But as you say, another month or so, Mars will come into Capricorn towards the end of Capricorn and be with Pluto and also be with Venus all together there. So yeah, that's kind of a very important time to watch. Yeah.
This picture you have behind you, Ariel, it's a crop circle?
Yes, it is.
Yes, really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Here's another slide I wanted to show on what we were talking about just now, the historical cycles of the Venus star point. And then these are the 5 that are in effect right now: Scorpio, Aries, Gemini, Capricorn, Leo. But soon we will have Libra, and soon we will have Pisces, soon after that. And so this is a big change from a 100-year Scorpio star point to a 100-year Libra star point, and also a 100-year Aries star point to a 100-year Pisces star point. And what I realized about this is that, you know, those signs are ruled by Mars. And we've had a lot of Martian signs on the 5 points of the Venus star. It's been a very Martian century, or half a century anyway, but lots of, you know, even Capricorn has the exaltation of Mars. So it's been 3 points of the star have had a Mars empowerment. We will slowly move into first Libra, where Venus is you know, the governing planet. And then slowly after that, we will move into Pisces, which is the exaltation point of Venus. And then it will take a few more decades after that, but finally Taurus will come back into play. And so we will actually, the pendulum swings very heavily from one side to the next, where by the end of the 21st century, we'll have 3 Venus stars signs on the star, whereas at the end of the 20th century, we had 3 Mars signs on it. So you can see we can anticipate the difference. We can see, okay, it's going to feel very different when Venus has a play, when Venus signs are on the star. And I also wanted to make mention of the fact that the last Libra VSP was 1771 to 1880. So it's been a long time since we've had a Libra star point. You know, there's nobody alive that, you know, that is a Libra star pointer could even remember it. And this is the next one. But this double air presence on the star is very interesting, because we'll have Libra and Gemini coming in. The last time 2 air signs were present on the star was 1964 to 1984, a time when music interfaced with politics and made significant impact on the policies of the time. It was all these singers, songwriters, and the music being, you know, the expression of the people of the time. And Bob Dylan was one of the forerunners of this. And I found this interesting. I saw this cover of an album where it's the essential Bob Dylan, 1965, 1966, and the 1964 was the time that the first Gemini star made its appearance. And Dylan is a Gemini as well. I found that also a lot of people who have that sign, you know, it may not be your sun sign, it might be your moon, it might be your Venus, it might be your Mercury or something, but when you have a certain planet present on one of the 5 points of the star, it's really making a statement for the era that star point is happening. So this was the time that we were all kind of waking up to, you know, these important, music wasn't just music. Music became really poetry, social, all across the board. And Dylan was only one of hundreds that came out during this time. Now here's the chart for the Libra, October 22nd, 2022. This is the new Libra star point. And actually, I was a little bit concerned that, oh, here we have Pluto again. You know, Pluto can't just get away from this star. You know, I mean, Pluto wants to be here because it's a time of transition. It's a time of transformation for the world. Look at Pluto's still here at 26 Capricorn, squaring the new star point at 29. But 29 is a little bit past 26. So let's see what, if we really feel like, you know, we are still in the thick of the transformational process, or if we've pretty much come past it. But we also know that a lot of countries' charts, we have to look at other countries. The United States is having a Pluto return all through 2022. So that's going to be part of it. But we do have a nice air trine here. Speaking of air, look at all this air. Mars is at 25 Gemini, Vesta is at 24 Aquarius, Saturn's still in Aquarius, of course, and the star point is air with Mercury. We have a nice Mercury-Saturn trine here. So there are some very pleasant and nice, hopeful elements to this new Libra star point as well. I wanted to go back to the last Libra star point, and I found it really interesting that these two women, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, a Libra morning star, and Susan B. Anthony, a Libra evening star, partnered to bring in a very strong movement of bringing women the right to vote, and began the National Women's Suffragette movement. And the vote didn't come in, the ability for women to vote didn't happen for another 50 years, but they started the movement in that process. So things happened very slowly back then. But I found it interesting that Libra represents the scales of justice and equality, and these two women, who were both Libra star points, brought in that idea. So I think our little ones that are being born in the new Libra star point era are going to have a much stronger sense of justice and social affairs, not just between genders, but also between races and economic classes and all kinds of things, to try to equalize things. And that's one thing that the Libra star point might do for us, is to help bring people together. I mean, we also had a civil war during the Libra star point period, 77, it was in the 1860s in America, but it was before the end of the Libra star. And though it was a war about freedom and freeing slaves. And so it was about bringing the issue of equality to the table a little bit more. So there are some hopeful things coming up for the Libra period as well. And this is just to talk about my Venus star course. You can find it on my website if you want to study it more deeply. My other books, and almost everything I talked about today is in either the ebook or the print book. And the I think the idea that I want to hold here is what we just said, the retreat of the Mars ruled signs and the ascendancy of the Venus ruled signs, that we are anticipating a better world, a world that's ready for peace, a world that's safer, more beautiful and healthier planet on which to reside. And we will stop wanting to be at war. We will stop wanting to destroy each other and the planet. And as the song in the 60s said, peace will guide the planet and love will steer the stars. Will it happen? I don't know, but it's a vision I'm trying to hold, and that I hope it will be. And that was something else. So that was from another Aries. That was the Aries thing. But anyway, I hope I've answered most of your questions.
Do you have a question, Mar?
I'm fine. I think it was wonderful to hold that vision, right? For like rise of a more conscious, healthy way of relating to each other. Yes.
I mean, it's also really think about the role that women play in society. If we had the two women in the last Venus star point, just trying to get women to have the right to vote, think of how far women have come now in politics, in business, in every field of endeavor. I think we are going to see a lot more. And I do feel it's up to women to play a role in this new phase of life that we're going to be in, because we've had a majority of men ruling the earth for a very long time, and it hasn't been necessarily you know, they've made progress in certain ways, but it hasn't been peaceful, and it hasn't been easy. It's been exploitive. I hope that this will also bring the Venusian element into play in politics and business and all kinds of creative endeavors. Whether it's women having a more of a voice, or just more of a balance all the way around.
Yes. And the feminine side of men as well, right? Like even the rise of the feminine was very much a masculine way of doing things, just done by women. And now is when we are really discovering what is the feminine way of doing business, what is the feminine way of doing politics. Because at the beginning, it was just doing the same that the men were doing. But so is that rise, I think, is also very interesting how it's playing out within us, right? Because we have the masculine so developed that it takes a lot to develop also the feminine, even for women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, women now really during the Aries star point mostly have been empowering themselves for, you know, to be able to do things more like men have traditionally done. During the same time, men have started to become, to take on more roles that women used to do, for instance, domestic roles and things like that. But I see, you know, a joining now. It's like, as we get more into the Libra star, will it matter what the gender is? We have all this gender fluidity happening now in this non-binary culture that is emerging right now, that says, you know, I'm not a he, I'm not a she, I'm a we. You know, this is coming in more and more too. And so are we going into a world like that where it's not so important that you look at a person and you define them by their gender?
Mar, dile que esta Venus Star Point en Capricornio va a estar favoreciendo a Tauro, que es donde Venus después de todo es la regente del nodo norte. Entonces quizás este Venus Star Point ayude un poco, digamos, a poner de relieve también las energías de Venus como regente de estos eclipses en el 2022.
Sí, lo dijo antes ella también, ¿no?
Okay. Bueno,
sí,
no,
más o menos. Sí, no, we are talking about that, how the Venus and the North Node as well is having that soft influence as well of, not soft, right, but that nice influence of the North Node in this upcoming year with the eclipse.
I do think we'll see a definite vibrational shift going with the nodes going out of Gemini and Sagittarius into Taurus and Scorpio.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Estimated Ariel, very thank you for this wonderful explanation about Venus Star Point. And this is a gift for us, for all of us.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope it makes sense to everybody. And if you want to know more, as I said, I have that training program for astrologers. It's in English. It has not been translated into Spanish yet, but if you feel confident in your English skills and your Venus star astrology skills, you can take the course and become, you know, have a proficiency exam opportunity for that too. We have a global family of Venus Star Point practitioners happening now, and from almost in every continent. I don't think we have one in Canada yet. So
maybe.
Yeah,
anyway, it was wonderful to be here today. Thank you for having me. And
thank you to you, Ariel.
let's have a very productive and time in this coming 9 months, this Venus star Capricorn cycle. May we have achieved what we want to achieve during this time.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Ariel. Kiss. Besos a todos. Gracias
Yeah,
por estar.
and thank you, Ursula. Thank you, Ariel, as
Gracias,
well.
Mar, por tu participación y tu
Yes.
ayuda.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you
yes.
both.
It was a total pleasure. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Glad-
Bye.